Welcome back to the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast with Benji Naesen and to Stage 2 of the Tour de Romandie 2021, a 165-kilometre long stage from La Neuville to Saint-Imier. It has, I think, 5 Category 2 climbs, and it finishes with a Category 1 La Vue des Alpes, which crests about 17 kilometres from the finish. It's 8 kilometres at 6.7%. There was over 3,300 metres of climbing. A very rolly stage, but unfortunately it precedes the true mountain stage and is after just a prologue, not a long time trial where significant differences might be had. So it looks like a breakaway stage, Benji, but the way GC is set up made that difficult. But who were the brave souls that went into the break today? They were pretty strong riders.
Yes, we had quite a few strong riders, including a few previous Grand Tour winners in the breakaway. First of which is Rein Tarame, Wanty, so a potential stage win for Wanty. We're so hyped for that one. Antoine Tolhoek in the break as well. I think he is having his birthday today, 27. Bernsteiner is also in the breakaway. We know him from breakaway stage in the Giro last year. Davide Villela also in the breakaway, and we also have Chris Hamilton for Sunweb and Caicedo for EF Education First. So all in all, a pretty strong breakaway when it comes to climbers, and these are pretty much all of them, except perhaps Tarame at this point in his career, riders that I could see fighting for a Giro stage win or something of those lines in the future. We've seen them do that in the past as well, pretty much. So just wanted to bring that up. But very rolly parkour, like you mentioned, and that breakaway actually got a pretty considerable gap. But the problem there is that there's riders in there that quite simply are a bit too close in GC, with the likes of Chris Hamilton being on 29 seconds going into this stage. I think we're going to have a quick discussion about that after the stage, about why someone like DSM does not, for example, take more time in the previous stages to then send someone in the breakaway, because with 29 seconds, people are going to control you. But anyway, we're going to discuss that after the stage discussion, I think. For now, that breakaway held on quite a long time, but in the peloton, we saw that Ineos was quite intrigued to keep that gap relatively low because, well, some riders in there had a limited gap, and it kind of stayed around 4 or 5 minutes at a certain point, and then it went down again, and it went down to like 1 minute with roughly 50k to go. And this is going into like the second last climb of the day, Le Pontin. So from that point on, you're like, are they going to close it already? That might be a bit early, because if you close the break too early, then you're going to see other opportunists trying to tag themselves. But Ineos made the decision to, just before the Le Pontin climb, with roughly 50k to go, to drop the gas a bit, and then offered the opportunity in the breakaway to see that the gap is expanding again with a small attack by Tarame that eventually led to him riding alone and the rest just dropping. And I think Tolhoek was the first one to drop from that chasing group as well, but Tarame became the lone wolf at the moment at the front of the race. Now, the gap was opening up again because Ineos, like I mentioned, wasn't riding at their fullest again. And this went to 1 minute 30, 2 minutes, 2 minutes 20, and this is going into the final climb of the day. Did you at any point think that Tarame might actually have an opportunity here?
I mean, he's good in Switzerland. In the past, he'll have like one crazy week a year where he beats like the best GC riders in the world in a World Tour stage race. But no, I didn't think so. I think it looks like he goes too early, but his breakaway companions looked cooked, so it's not like he had a choice. I think he realized, we have to go quicker, we're getting caught.
Yeah.
Ineos clearly wanted to bring Amador and Doul with them over that second to last climb, because they just had Ganna and Dunbar left for the last climb, and then the 3 leaders. We'll get to that discussion in a second, Benji. Trying to protect 3 leaders, it's impossible. So they got them over that climb and then started to mow Tarame down in the valley. And apparently they get to this final climb, strong headwind. No, they catch him on the climb rather, but when I say mowing him down, they're eating into the gap. And who was pacing on the climb after they caught Tarame, Benji? Did Ineos kind of take their foot off the gas a little bit and then attack started to come?
Yeah, but we also saw that Ganna was the rider that was taking up the front of the Ineos train at that
That's
point,
right.
making sure that riders that do attack don't necessarily get a huge gap. But we saw some attacks because, well, the breakaway was caught, and that gives opportunists an opportunity because that's where they get their name. And we saw attacks by the likes of an Ilan van Wilder. We spoke about him yesterday as a potential top 10 GC rider here, very young rider, and looking forward to see what he becomes in time trial as well. And he got a bit of a gap, and I thought, okay, this is like a decent gap already, but we saw reactions after that. And I think we saw moves from the likes of a Michael Woods in that group, and we saw an imminent reaction to Michael Woods by Sepp Kuss. And when Sepp Kuss attacks, your eyes go wide open, and you're like, okay, this is it. Now, what does Ineos do to this? And they actually did what they always do. They kept very calm, just had Ganna at the front pace it, and when Ganna was done, it was decision-making time. Who do you go for? You've got Dennis, you've got Port, and you've got Thomas. We know that Port and Thomas are better climbers than Dennis on paper, outside of the Stelvio stage last year. And yeah, how did they make the decision?
They just put Dennis on the front. I don't know. Well, I don't know how they made the decision, Benji. I'm not in the Ineos car yet.
Coin flip.
Yeah. So I think Dennis just wants to do that. He seems to be happy to do that. I don't think this is a strong indication, surely, that he's not in their Tour de France GC plans, which, I mean, I have a view on, but if he doesn't want to do it, and he's, I'd say, one of the best domestiques in the world in stage races, I'd struggle to think of another more complete domestique at the moment in terms of flat and these long climbs. I mean, on something like Puy-Marie, maybe not, but outstanding for Dennis. And he just put it on probably his threshold or zone 3 and shut this whole race down. I think we saw over the top of the climb, Benji, who were the quick men that were still in the group? Because we were kind of surprised that there were so many quick men left. Sagan had been dropped at the base, but Colbrelli was there. Who else was there? Was Ulysses there?
I am not sure that Ulysses was there. I didn't see him, at least. I know that Hirschi was still in the group and that Costa was in his wheel at a certain point. So those two riders have a history of having a decent punch at the end of the stage. But if you got to do it against Colbrelli, a rider that has a history of pure sprints as well next to his hilly sprints, then it's going to be tough. We also saw Patrick Bevan, I think, top 3 of yesterday. We spoke about him yesterday, also in the group. And I think those were the real notable names for the sprint here. Outside of that, there was some slight mention that Stewart was in this group, but I didn't believe that, and eventually it wasn't true in the end. So, yeah, I thought it was going to be between Colbrelli and Bevan, and to be honest, the attention in the group was looking towards that because Colbrelli was like, Bernsteiner, you got caught, to the front of the group, mate. Start riding. And Bernsteiner went straight into domestique duties, and he did that pretty much the same way that he did yesterday, just control the tempo of the group after the climb was done and in the descent. And well, we really had no reactions anymore because like the people that from GC attacked on the climb, they know that if they attack here, they've got Dennis. Now for Ineos, that is a domestique now. So
yeah.
Are you going to get away? No. And are you going to get away on the descent? Probably not either. So at that point, it's kind of useless to still try something, and it's better to wait till tomorrow, I think. And we saw that the rest of the stage was pretty much destined to go towards that sprint, slightly downhill, and a bit of not a sketchy last kilometer, but I think it was pretty straight, so no real dangerous marks there. But was it Caruso that was starting to lead out for Colbrelli?
Yeah, it was Caruso. I think Haig was protecting his own GC for Bahrain, and Dennis and Thomas actually tried a last-minute escape, Benji, like Froome, Thomas,
right.
Bodnar, Sagan style in the Tour. Dennis, right, it was hilarious. He was pulling what he probably was an easy tempo for him, and Pernsteiner, poor guy, he's like 55 kilos, was losing his wheel. Second wheel. I don't know why Bahrain put him there, honestly. It wasn't necessary. Dennis was keeping it all together. And Dennis went clear, looked behind, and was like, I better stop. And then he did it. I don't know. I think at this point he might have been trying to split it, but they were basically he was babysitting Port and Thomas. And I don't even know if the 3 kilometer rule applies, Benji, because this isn't a sprint stage. And I know the 3-second bunch rule, if you're distanced at the finish in a sprint, you walk at the same time. I'm not sure I doubt that applied too. So Dennis seemed to be pulling into the last 800 meters just about, and he split it with Thomas, saw he got a gap and really accelerated, and but then came back again. I think Woods or ISU had to chase it down. It definitely was Woods. And then Caruso let out Colbrelli on the middle of the road pretty much, got Bevan on his wheel, Kelderman fourth wheel for Bora Hansgrohe, and it was pretty straightforward. Colbrelli opened it up with about 200, went to the left-hand side of the barriers. Bevan got his wheel on the wrong side of Colbrelli. It was pretty clear that Colbrelli was going to close that space to the left-hand side. Most sprinters will. And Bevan shot his wheel up to the left-hand side. He then had to slow and then restart his sprint out of the slipstream to the right-hand side of Colbrelli. Was trying to come around him, but he seemed to run out of steam. He drew about level with his front wheel with Colbrelli's hip, but never really looked like coming around Colbrelli, who won his third World Tour race and 25th professional win. First win this year and first World Tour level win for a while, I think. He moved a bit to the right at the end. You'll see if you watch the footage. That's because the seam in the road, there's two seams. First, there was the middle seam that you're used to in Belgium, the crevice of death in the middle of the road. And then this second seam started in the last 10 meters to the sort of left third of the road, and Colbrelli jerks his bike to the right-hand side of it. That's how I look at it, and that's what I think happened, his little movement at the end. But any big learnings from this stage, Benji? Any riders?
I finally learned what a seam is. I didn't know that. I'm curious what they call the men that put that into the road. But anyway, I think all in all, a rather disappointing stage. Can I say that? I think that I hoped for more looking at the profile beforehand. And
we wanted a Hirschi attack.
Yeah, we wanted something, okay? And we had attacks, but it wasn't what we expected. Because, people are going to say that Ineos is smoking the race by pacing like that on the final climb, trying to keep it together, but it would be stupid if they didn't. This is the ideal way to win this race for them. Just ride like this the entire Tour de Romandie on the climb tomorrow, same thing, and it's going to be a fun ride, I guess. 1, 2, 3 on the podium, okay? The end of Tour de Romandie, we're done. What do we expect? They come to these races with a godlike star list compared to other teams who are here with one leader and then domestiques that aren't necessarily close to the strength of the likes of Dennis and a second leader like Thomas and or Port. So I don't know, it's genuinely such a difference in team width in this race that it would not surprise me at all that they have the top three at the end of this Tour de Romandie. And if they do, then it's not an indicator necessarily for the likes of a Tour de France or something, because, this does not give them anything of an extra lead on the likes of Pogacar and Roglic, who are beating top riders in the races they ride. Not saying that the riders that are competing with Ineos here are not top riders, but they're significantly less capable of winning the Tour de France. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I agree. What learnings? I think the TT, I think it's good for them, the chemistry, getting the rolls right.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to use Dool and Amador in this order, then Ganna can do a pull here and sort that out. It is good for them. But yeah, in terms of oh my God, Pogacar won Tirreno, Roglic won Basque Country, and Thomas won Romandie. That means they're all on level footing. No, it's not the way we should look at this. But I don't know. I would have liked them to maybe. Nah, I can't criticize what they did. It's exactly the correct strategy. There's nothing else to say, really. I should read out the full results before we get into the preview of next stage. Colbrelli, Bevan, Hirschi, Champoussin fourth. Marseillais, he won, Benji, from a sprint? Champoussin? He won Parapantre. Jesus, that's criminal, confusing the two Frenchmen.
All French people are the same. Lanterne 2021.
Ulissi fifth, Kelderman sixth, Van Wilder 7th, Masnada 8th, Costa 9th, and Soler 10th. So not exactly the deepest group at the finish. Do you think Peter Sagan will be having regrets, Benji, for not trying on the climb? Or do you think it was too long? Colbrelli said it was really strong headwind. Yeah, he couldn't believe he got over it.
Yeah, kind of true. I don't know. I think it's on the edge. I think that he probably won't mind too much that he didn't try because he's got so many wins in his career already. But like, if he pushed on, it could have been really close. And with the descent afterwards, he could have gotten back because, well, Bernsteiner was leading the descent. And while Bernsteiner is decent in descent, he's not going to go all out. He's going to try and keep it together. I don't know. That's kind of my take on it. Outside of that,
speaking
I think,
of Sagan,
yeah, go ahead.
Tomorrow, looks like a stage. He's got his name on. From Estevaya to Estevaya, 169 Ks. I think not too much extended climbing. They do a circuit again, 3 laps of this Estevaya circuit. It's very similar to stage 1, with 2 climbs put together that they repeat, not at the finish. Chable, 1.8 Ks, 6.1%. Lagrange, 7.5% for 2.5 Ks. Between those climbs is 30 kilometers or 28 kilometers of flat. The crest of the last climb is with 9 Ks. It's so similar to stage 1, except that it's slightly closer to the finish and it's all gradual downhill to the finish. I don't know the wind conditions, but surely Sagan is the favourite again tomorrow, Benji.
I think so as well. I think that we're going to see a three-man sprint here with Sagan, Colbrelli, and Bevan. And yeah, I don't really see something else happening. It's like, I think that in regards to stage 1, yes, not stage 0. This is so difficult. The stage comparisons with the prologue at the start, I hate it. But I think the climbs are indeed very similar. I think that the first one is a bit easier. And my question is, I was going to ask the question, can Viviani hang on? But I think he's fucked, mate, for this. But yeah.
Well, it depends on the wind conditions. I'd love to see Quickstep, and when I say love to see, if it's possible, they will try on that descent. They tried their best in the face of seemingly an impossible finish for anything but a bunch sprint in stage 1. And I think they might try something tomorrow. That's the only avenue I see. Again, break going to get collared because it's so close. Bike Exchange will ride for Dion Smith, so they'll collar the break. If Ineos will probably keep it 3-5 minutes all day, they'll keep it in check, and then they'll wait for Bike Exchange, EF for Court, Bora for Sagan to then bring it to 30 seconds a minute before the last climbs, and then reduce bunch sprint, I'd expect, as Benji said. And yes, Sagan's got to be. I think he can be dropped, Benji. If the wind is not a headwind, I think he still can be dropped on that climb. 2.5 K, 7.5%. He has been climbing better than, say, even Catalunya or the race he did before that. But I think it's possible if a team really takes it up to drop him, like Movistar did in Catalunya on stage 1. But they'll have to really commit a lot of resources to it and then keep it going in the 10Ks to the finish. But before we get to our discussion of what Benji and I would have done differently if we were DSs of some of these teams, I just want to mention Le Col, our sponsor, bit of a mid-roll read, just because I was looking through their website and they brought out some new kits for the change of season in Europe, some summer-style jerseys. So they've got their Pro Air jersey for the hot days in the mountains. They've got a Stelvio-style jersey, which looks very nice. I must say, we've got the Giro just coming up. You'll hear more about an announcement, a new release from Le Col, probably in the Giro preview show. You can also now buy the Drops Le Col replica or race kit as well, if you like that kit. Probably the best kit in the female peloton, in my non-biased opinion. But my question, Benji, was, if you're the DS of DSM and you have Hamilton in your team and Aronsman, do you tell them or another similar rider who is not a threat on GC, but they can climb okay, do you tell them lose time deliberately on stage one?
Yeah, because I think their current strategy is a bit counterproductive because, well, let's say you start a 6-day stage race, and if you plan it out from beforehand, that you say, okay, on the time trial, these two people are going to be free elements through the race. They're going to be focusing on breakaways. Then those people can just rest up in the time trial and take time. They shouldn't be riding at their best. They shouldn't end up within 30 seconds of the winner of a prologue, in my opinion. And they did that with both of the riders, I think, that they put into the breakaway the last 2 days, which was Hamilton and Arensman. And while Arensman and Hamilton are decent climbers and could potentially end up in the top 20 of this GC in Romandie, question is that worth it if you want to try and go in the breakaway anyway? I think not, because Ilan van Wilder seems to be the perfect candidate as leader of their team here, and he should get the focus for that. And if that is the case, then those other two are better off knowing from beforehand it's best to take time on stages that you're not going to breakaway. Because in those stages, well, you're gaining time in you're losing time in GC. You're gaining seconds behind deficit in GC, which means that the moment you go in the breakaway, let's say that Chris Hamilton today, for example, goes into the breakaway and he is already 5 minutes behind. And let's say the other people in the breakaway with him are also on a similar gap. Then that breakaway is not going to get too much care from Ineos because they're like, yeah, they're on 5 minutes. We weren't going to go for the stage anyway, so we might as well just let them go and have them at 5 minutes throughout the entire stage. If someone else wants to take on the chasing and the peloton, they can. One, this betters the position of DSM, I think, because if they're going in the breakaway, then they've got more of an opportunity of actually succeeding with the breakaway. And this also betters indirectly the position of Ineos because they don't need to do that much work. But that shouldn't really matter for DSM themselves. But what I also think is that the problem here is that the stage profiles of Romandie have it so that the first few stages can't have too many gaps, meaning that most of the peloton is relatively close in GC, except for like Froome and Viviani. And this means that it's hard to have a breakaway where not one rider is close. Like today, Hamilton wasn't the only one that was close in GC. And if that's the case, then they're going to chase the other people in that group. So, I don't know. It's a bit of a double situation because of the parkour of Romandie here.
Well, Benji and I were congratulating Lutsenko and thinking he was a chance for the break yesterday because he lost 10 minutes. Apparently he's unwell. But we think that is a good strategy just because the way they have assembled the parkour and sequenced the stage profiles means that you're not going to have a time gap before a stage which suits a breakaway. And a stage that suits a breakaway, remember, is a stage where there is a dominant GC team already, Ineos, and there is nothing to be gained from their GC team in terms of moving up GC on the stage, Ineos, today's stage, and also where it's not clear that the sprint stage, that the sprinters teams can win either. Not that we really have any here, but even if we did, even if we had Jumbo with a fully stacked lead out for Groenewegen or Pete Kittel or whatever, they're probably not getting over that final climb if a team actually goes hard on it. And that's why it's perfect. That's how you figure out, is this more likely to be a breakaway style stage? And I'll read out some names of riders that will not come in the top 5 on GC. They'll probably embarrass me now, but Gorka Izagirre, Arensman, Van Garderen, Reichenbach, O'Connor, Badilati, Cataneo, Cataldo, Patelli, Skelmozy Jensen, Jose Herrada. I could go on and on and on. There are many names of riders who will not come in the top 5 on GC. Top 10 in the Tour de France on GC, that's an achievement worth fighting for. Sorry, but 8th at this Romandie, like, I don't know what their sponsors are going to say that's a great tick on the exposure KPI thing. Like, come on, get out. Like, it's not worth anything. And I would, if I was a DS, I would have told, if I was the DS of any of those riders, I would like you to lose 10 minutes on stage 1. Just take it easy.
No. Wait.
What?
they should just DNF in the prologue, because according to the rules of the UCI,
but then they only get the last time.
If you, well, yeah, that's true.
It's only a 40-second gap.
A lot of people probably don't know this, but if you DNF in an official prologue, so according to the specs that a prologue needs, I think it's under 8 kilometers or something at the start of a race. Well, you can DNF and you can still start the day after it.
I didn't know that.
That's hilarious.
Okay. Assuming they do that, and they just don't even get the TT, they don't even bring the TT bike down to the stage, and they just DNF that. I want them to lose 10 minutes on the next stage. Honestly, Benji, I'm telling you, if there was a break with 5 guys, all 12 minutes on GC, surely Ineos don't chase it down. Like, why would they? Yep. And what other teams are going to chase it down? What? Bahrain, who sort of are they going to chase it
down? We're in the break with Bernsteiner. So let's say Bernsteiner's on 10 minutes.
So they wouldn't, because they got Bernsteiner on 10 minutes. It just, it's something that you never see teams coordinate and do it. And it's like, you're just, because it's sequenced in this way, doesn't mean you have to just let this breakaway stage become a weird reduced bunch sprint. But I guess Bahrain got their dubski. Anyway, Benji, if it's called a prologue, I got this theoretical question which we can end on. If that's a prologue, is the Champs-Élysées stage an epilogue, not stage 21?
I literally made that joke on Twitter 2 days ago. I'm not even joking. Yes.
Oh, fuck.
I think that I agree with you. I
don't use my Twitter.
So
someone else uses it for me because I get too mad.
So that means we've got a prologue, 19 stages, and an epilogue. But let's say there's a rule that you can DNF the epilogue. How many riders would finish?
None. Okay. Maybe they just want to look around for us.
Only the yellow jersey.
We're off. We're derailed here. We're going to end this. And we'll see you with stage 3 tomorrow, which is going to be the same sort of stage. If we're honest, it's going to be a weird reduced bunch sprint, but that is what it is. Giro soon. We'll see you later. Ciao.